So we shifted to hospital quarters. So I managed to go to school to join my secondary education, second term. And I never joined boarding school because of fee inadequacy. I had to be a day scholar at Namachanja High School. That is 2001 to 2004. After fourth form, the period of 2 years before joining college, I knew how to play it. So I used to plate people at home, but sometimes I used to hang out at Alan Mabuka's salon and barber shop that was in Marel, plating people, doing blow dry, so that I could get something that may help us or may help me in preparation for college. It was still in nurses' quarters. It wasn't easy for us. It was still struggle. There was a shop in Marel, Jose shop. Just God bless this man wherever he is. We used to take things on credit at that shop. Even sometimes we used to fear to go back and take more, but we had to. This man had patience with us. We survived, and life started becoming at least better. Regina passed and joined Egerton Biomedicine. Lynette joined Pearl College in Kakamega, accounting. So, as much as Lynette joined college, she too had to look for a job. So, it reached a point she had her classes, but doing job. So in 2007, I was able to join Mombasa Technical Training Institute, MTTI, near Tononoka. A three-year course in food and beverage management. I did my attachment at Mombasa Beach Hotel, but after completing my course, I returned back home. I knew if I returned to Mombasa Beach, they will still take me for a job, because my colleagues, Dismas Chilanga, Solomon Kamande, they returned and they were employed there, but I came back home. And later, I visited my sister Lynette, who now had settled in Kakamega. So I applied for jobs here, guest house, Kamadep, but I never got a chance. I later got a chance at Victoria Fish Center as a waitress. So in 2012, towards the end, I was able to secure another job at Yakumat supermarket in the cafeteria section in Kakamega. But after 2 weeks, there was a new branch that was opening in Busia. So I, together with the others, were posted to this new branch. And this was the first time when I had to start my own life. So the people that we moved there, the bakery section, we rented our houses in one plot. There was the cafeteria, the restaurant and bakery section. So the bakery mainly involved men. So these men, they took a house which had 3 rooms and decided they will live in that house, each occupying a room. But in the end, summing up the total and paying the rent. So I acquired my own house just alone, hoping that some people who were to come from Bungoma branch, I may find one of them who together will share the house and pay the rent. But by bad luck, I found none. So I continued just living in that house. But before I moved to Busia, I was in a relationship with Brian. But Brian was in the army. And I had a friend too who was in the army. And he had fallen for me. He knew Brian. But to him, he had more hopes. Kipto. So, he never messed with my relationship with Brian. He respected that. But he said he just enjoys my company. So I was just friendly with him, because there was that boundary. And I remember during my birthday that year, this Kipto gave me a present, a phone. And we used to chat, we used to communicate. just greetings and asking how I was doing. So I had informed him that I got a new job at Yakomat, Busia, and I had shifted from Kakamega. He said one day he will come and visit. So when I was staying in Busia alone, we used to report at work. It was very early, and then in the evening, mostly from 8 to 9, we come back home, and then in the morning we have to report very early. So one day during the December season, I was sleeping in the house, and it was past midnight, and I remember this time Ugandan singer Chameleon had come to perform in a club, and one of our colleagues, Nick, he worked in the bakery section and I was in the cafeteria section, and he had rented together with the other men. So the others were older than him, and he decided that he will go to that Chameleon concert. So us, we slept. So in the middle of the night, I heard someone knock my door. I never opened at first. He knocked again, I never opened, and I never responded. Then I heard the voice of the one speaking. It was Nick. And he was begging that I open up for him so that at least he could get some rest, so that in the morning he is able to report to work. Because he has tried knocking where he sleeps for the others to open for him, but they have ignored him, and he has at least to get some sleep so that tomorrow he be able to manage to do work. So this thing, I was reluctant because I knew before he had confessed not once that I am his wife. So I was asking him, how sure are you? Because I already belong to someone else, because I am in a relationship. And he had said to me, time will tell. So in my mind, I was reluctant, remembering these words, asking, is this a trap? But there he was still standing, saying that I won't do anything bad. I just want to sleep and lay my head. I won't do anything bad to you or disturb you. And he was begging for him to just to come in and have some sleep. So in the end, I decided to open. I had only one mattress. So I became strict with him. He entered and he was drunk. And I knew too he used to eat mira, because I had spotted him many times eating. So he was drunk. He just came in and slept. He never disturbed me, nothing happened. He just slept. And in the morning, he woke up and said thanks. And he went. But now in the morning, when he woke up, going out of my house, the other people were already awake, and some saw him come out of my house. So when I reported to work, the story now changed. He is my man. So that is the rumor that began to spread. So I'm always silent. I never talk much. So it didn't bother me because the truth lies with me. So that day, the following day, I was at work doing work. It was around 10. From nowhere, like a surprise, I saw Kiptoo come. He never alerted me. So he came, he greeted me, and he said he had just passed to say hi. So we talked for a while and he went. So he had come from Kakamega because their home is Kakamega, from Kakamega to Busia. So when he went, I told him bye. And I knew he had gone home. But during 8, when we were closing from work going home, when I just stepped outside, I saw him. He was seated outside. So I decided to ignore him because I knew what is going on his mind. So he had planned a trap. Now that I was not in Kakamega, Brian was not there. So he kept close as a friend, saying that he respects my relationship with Brian. But here, he has another agenda. So we were many people coming out of the supermarkets. So I managed to dodge around and went. And when I was going with the group that we used to live together, so I was in the company of Nick and Ken. Ken was older, he was a man with family. So I remember when going, I explained everything to Ken. And I told Ken, there are some traps that I won't fall into. No one will force me to do anything. So Nick followed me. And we managed to get out of his sight, Kiptoo sight, because he was following also. Like he was tracking me slowly. I don't know if he was asking those other people who were left behind. So when I entered my house, and I remember Nick had entered my house. and we were just talking. But when we were talking, the house that I was living in was direct with the gate. What I saw shocked me. I saw now Kiptoo at the gate, and he was inquiring from another workmate, and I saw this workmate point to him the house that I was living in. So when I saw that, I told Nick, I don't know what you're going to do, but I want to lock this door and I'm not going out. I'm not letting this man enter my house, because he wants to force and do what he wants to do against my will. Because there's no agreement I have made with him. I'm only a friend. Though he has feelings for me and he had that hopes, but I've never given in to his love, because he knows he has another man. So let him not take that chance that now that I am alone, living in Busia, Brian is not there, coming in the name of a friend, and he has another agenda. So Nick saw him approaching, and he said, that if he's going out, it may be some other problem. So Nick again refused to go out, and I had to lock that door. So I ended up inside the house with Nick. And Nick was familiar with this Kiptoo, because many times he used to call me Kiptoo. He used to call me and we talked. And what also made Nick familiar with Kiptoo, at that time Nick had no phone. His phone was in bad shape. So sometimes he would borrow my phone and use it. Even sometimes going to the internet. So when I locked this door, drama started. Kiptoo started crying. He started crying, saying that he thought if I separate with Brian, he will be the one. But now I have another man in the house. So he talked many things, confessing the love that he has for me. And I thought that he will go home, because I knew Kiptoo's dad. He was a customer in the restaurant that I used to serve in Kakamega. And now that I was the accountant, and now that I was the cashier, and the main product that was being sold there was fish, I used to have the numbers of some customers. And it happened, as much as I shifted from that place, I still had the phone number of Kiptoo's dad. So I called Kiptoo's dad and informed him everything. And I told him to talk to his son. But as much as his dad tried to talk to Kiptoo, he never listened. In fact, he was crying, talking to his father, saying that I love this woman. So at that moment, there was heavy rain. It rained heavily. So I never managed to cook. I just went and slept. And I was sleeping but disturbed, so, because sometimes he will knock the door crying, and it reached a point he went quiet. When he went quiet, I thought that he decided to go. So in the morning, I woke up. I was hungry because I had eaten nothing. So I woke up, it was 6. And I told Nick, I have to prepare and go. And Nick just said, what if he didn't go home and he's outside? That night we also just slept with Nick, but nothing happened. So I went. He opened the door. But on opening the door, like he was just there standing waiting for the door to be opened, like all through the night, he had just slept at that veranda. The soldier character. So when I opened the door, the first thing, he entered my house furiously and held Nick by his hand, like he was angry. So I looked, because I knew that in his mind now, to him, Nick is my new lover. So as I was standing looking, he let go of Nick's hand, and Kiptoo went straight to the kitchen room. So when he went straight to the kitchen room, Kiptoo came out with a knife from my kitchen, and he was heading straight to Nick. So when Nick saw him holding a knife, he ran outside for safety. And he went in straight to a neighbor's house that was open. So Kiptoo followed him into that house holding that knife. Then I heard a scream, because I managed to escape and went inside a colleague's house that was next to mine. So I heard a scream. When I heard a scream, now to me, I said, now he had pierced Nick with that knife. So I stood still. So when I stood still, my colleague was married, Sheila. So I asked George, her husband, to go and see what had happened. But when he was going there in that house, Nick came out, followed by Kiptoo. No blood anywhere. Kiptoo had no knife. So I wondered what had happened inside there, because that scream to me meant something negative. So Nick came back, and when they came out with Kipto from that house, there was not that anger being expressed. They were as if they were at least talking. So I was wondering what happened in that house. So when Nick came in, I asked him, I've heard that scream and I thought you had been pierced with that knife that Kipto had. So Nick said that's not the case. The scream was of the wife of the man of that house. So when Nick entered that house for safety, and Kipto had followed him. So when Nick entered that house, he fell into the hands of the owner of that house. And the owner of that house was too a policeman. So when the owner of that house saw Kipto entering with that knife, he was able to prevent it from happening. So when he was able to prevent it from happening, that's when he was able to talk to them, to talk even to Kipto. And he calmed down and apologized. So when they came into the house, Kipto apologized. He truly apologized. And he even apologized in front of Nick. So I never answered him, I just looked at him. But he said something. He said that it's better I end up with Nick rather than Brian. So I was wondering, why? Why all the drama? Why did he have to hide himself all this time? That he has respect for us in my relationship, and yet there is something that is hiding and burning inside of him. That it's better I end up with Nick than Brian. So I just kept quiet because time had passed and I was supposed to prepare and go to work. I remember this morning I had to take a bath with my colleague Shayla and go to work. So after Kipto had apologized, Nick he left directly to work. I was left alone and Kipto was still there. And I asked him to just go back home. And he said he has done bad, he apologizes. And he is not leaving until he sees that I have reported to work and I am safe. Because he wants to be accountable for what he has done. Let it not be he is the one who has caused me maybe to have a punishment from job or be dismissed from job. So he just waited patiently until I prepared myself and went to work. He escorted me. I remember, 2 hours. 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 2 hours When I took a van to work, he was there too. And he said he's paying the fare. But the other thing that surprised me, on our way to work, he removed a brand new phone. And he was telling me that it is a present that he had come to give me. So I told him I just don't want that present, just let him keep. And I told him the phone that I was using at that time, I accepted it because it was a gift that he gave me on my birthday. So to me it was a birthday gift. But now he has come with a brand new phone, touchscreen, and he was giving me. So I told him thanks and I don't want. Akajaribu kunibembeleza nichukue, nikamwambia tu hapana, sitaki. So I reported to work and he went back home. And that marked the day. So in the evening, while from work, I received a phone call. It wasn't in the evening. In the evening, the phone call that I received, it was from a friend of mine from Kakamega who knew that Kipto loved me. And she was telling me that Kipto is in the bar and he is just crying, calling out my name. He is just crying, calling out my name. So she was calling, asking me, what have you done to Kipto? I explained everything to her and she said okay. But this same day, it was around 10, I had been sent to buy green grocers. I remember I used to go to the market. It was called, I remember it was called Sophia Market, something like that. So while there, I remember I received a call from Brian. And he told me that Kipto had called him and he has told me that I am married, that I have another man, I have another husband. So Brian was furious. He didn't even want to hear my side, to hear me explain. And he gave me an ultimatum. Brian told me that if I truly love him and I am serious with him, by tomorrow morning, I should have packed my things and moved away from Busia and go to Nairobi, travel to Nairobi and live with him and be with him. So this was impossible to me. This was impossible to me because this is the job that I have. I have so many things surrounding me, so why should I leave and go to Nairobi? Just staying depending on him. Because to me, that was not right. That was not the best thing. So he told me that if by tomorrow I won't be in Nairobi, then me and him, it will be like a past tense. And that is how my relationship with Brian ended. So when it ended that way, Nick here was always there. He will never depart from my side. And in the end, I found myself living with him, starting a life with him, out of scratch, having nothing. I remember the only mattress I had was the 3-inch mattress. And I do remember the first gift that I received from Nick. He bought me 2 pairs of pants. So I was still confused. And you enter into something blindly, but having hope. But still I used to pray. I used to pray and ask God, just give me a sign that I am heading the right way. So, and I remember even I used to pray and say, because Nick had promised that he will take me to his parents' home. And I remember he even called his parents and informed him that he had gotten a wife. So I was praying to God and saying, if it is not my marriage, let not that visit happen. So the first time he planned, and I said, God, if I am able to go, then I will know that it is my marriage. But if it won't happen, then I will know that I'm not meant for him. I am in the wrong side. So the date that he planned, we go, it backfired. So there I was seated, telling God, is this the answer that you have given me? So I was praying and telling God, just let your will be done in my life. If it is not mine, I'll be able to walk away and live my life. So to me, I thought that now that this visit to their home has backfired, so Nick arranged for the second visit. And I remember this visit. It was on his birthday. It happened in February. So I was still confused, not at rest. But I just kept calm and said, if it is mine, I will stay. But if it is not mine, it will come a time when I'll be free. So I entered this relationship, this marriage, blindly. Because everything went too fast. It brought confusion in me. It was just like a wave. So Nick introduced me to his parents. I remember we traveled from Busia to Kakamega. And my fourth-born sister Harriet had just given birth to her first-born daughter. So we still were able to visit her place at Kefinko and see the newborn. I was together with Nick, and we headed back to Busia. So we operated, we reported to work, but I was in the restaurant, Nick was in the bakery section, baking the loaves of bread. So there were a group of boys. They will walk mostly in a group, visit the toilet. They will walk, visit the toilet. And later I heard that there were a group of boys that used to visit the toilet and smoke bang. But I just brushed it off. So it didn't take long the Indians that we were working with them, one day they caught Nick using the phone during workplace, and it was a rule that nobody should have a phone during work. So they took away that phone, and remember, it was my phone, not Nick's phone. So Nick had a case to answer, and he was suspended. So after this suspension, when he came back, he asked for the phone and refused to work. So Nick ended up being jobless. So I was the one working now. So Nick stayed jobless, but he was supportive with the house course. He was very supportive. But what bothered me sometimes, I would see him hanging in the company of some boys that to me, in my own eyes, I will see them as bad boys. I never asked him, I never questioned him. So I just kept quiet. So I got pregnant, and I remember Yakomat, we used to operate on contract. When you report in the morning, you sign. When you go out in the evening, you sign. You make your day. You are paid according to the days you have reported to work. When you are not at work, you'll have no salary at all. So I was about to go for maternity leave, but remember, I will go home and Nick is jobless and I am jobless. How will we survive? But something happened one day. I had come from work and it was around 7 in the evening. It was a bit dark. Some boys just appeared and they were looking for Nick. I wasn't okay with those boys. I just wasn't okay with those boys. So they came, they called, Nick went out to meet them, and they talked for a long time. But as they were talking, I was just trying to peep and know what was happening. Like they were having, like, I don't know how to explain. Like there was some secret hidden agendas, like there were some illegal arguments. So I just kept quiet. I never bothered to know much. So it was February 2014 and I had applied for my maternity leave. This same period, it then happened that Nick's dad, a contractor at Kenol Kobil, he managed to secure a job for his son at one of the petrol stations in Turbo. So this meant that we had to shift to Turbo. So now that I was about to have my firstborn child and I had no work to do, we had to shift. And this shifting, Nick's dad, they had a pickup. So he sent his brother not this time that we used the pickup. So this time Nick sent for help and we managed to move to Turbo. I remember before moving to Turbo, on our way, I was able to pass and greet my mom at hospital quarters on my way to Turbo. And another thing I remember before we moved from Turbo, something else happened. My sisters, Regina, Harriet, Lynette, paid a surprise visit while I was at work. I had to get permission off from work. So, the main purpose that they had come, at that time, we heard that our own father was working in Busia. He was living in Busia. But the funny thing, I had never met him. So they had come so that we can be able to meet him as his daughters. So we managed to see our father. We had our talk in a restaurant. But during this talk, our father confessed some things. That moment, that time, he was facing demonic torments and dark spiritual torments. He confessed and said that demonic spirits usually visit him, especially at night when he is at home. He will hear them walk outside in the compound with huge force and power. Even if he locks the door, even if he closes the windows, they will come and knock the window, they will come and knock the doors. And even if he doesn't open, they will enter into the house and he will see them seated in the house. Even if he goes in the bedroom to lie, he will see them lined up on the bed. And the funny thing, they came in the faces of some of his dead uncles. So he was saying that he has fought them until he was tired. And another thing that he said that surprised us, that these demons, some came in the face of our mother. So, to our dad, he was already made to think that my mother is responsible for this demonic torment. She is the evil one ambaye anahusika na mapepo na anamsukumia na mapepo. So he too had some hate and rejection towards mother. And so we questioned him about so many things. And he later confessed that he sought prayers. And he said some funny thing that he went, he was taken, I don't know where to, I don't know which person is that. And there's something that he gave him that he wears on his hand, on his fingers, I'll say fingers, that whenever these demons appear, so he will make his hand as if he is throwing a blow to them, having that thing. So when he does that, these demons flee. So as much as we were young, we knew this was not right. So we saw our father suffer in demonic torment. But I remember before he became that much addicted into suffering, my father wasn't that bad. He will assemble us in the evenings and he will open the Bible and he will instruct us to read the Bible. And I remember I am a stammerer, Lynette is a stammerer. I used to read and stammer. And the best verse that I have never forgotten, the verse that we used to read much, Psalms 35. Contend, O Lord, with those who contend with me. Fight against those who fight against me. Take up shield and buckler, arise and come to my aid. Brandish spear and javelin against those who pursue me. Say to my soul, I'm your salvation. To this day, this is the best memory that I do have of my father. Although the bad and the evil have happened, I know it is against his will. I know it is because of the dark torment. So that day we talked to him, and at least he felt happy. Because it was long time we had never seen him. And I remember there was a time that mother organized a harambe at Ark Hotel, Bungoma, Uncle Wanyonyi's place. But I don't know who informed my father, but he came and spoiled that harambe, saying that watoto wangu wafanyiwe harambe. So he spoiled that harambe, and yet he is not paying our fees, not supporting us with anything, even just food. So before I moved to Turbo from Busia, that is what happened. At that time, Regina was living in Nakuru. So we shifted to Busia, to Turbo. That was in 2014, about to give birth. And I always have an anemic condition. So while in Turbo, there's another thing I noted with Nick. He used every time to frequent the toilet. But when he frequents the toilet, he will spend much time in the toilet. So I was just wondering, does he have a stomach ache every time? But I never questioned him. Mostly I operated in silence. Mostly I do everything through observation. My eyes speak much more than my mouth. That's my character. So I just kept silent. And another thing I noted with him, mostly his lips were dry most of the time. So I used to ask him, why are you not drinking enough water so that your lips don't stay dry? Because it's like you are dehydrated. Or sometimes I ask him and advise him to apply oil on the lips so that they don't appear dry. And he loved sweets and PKs. Mostly in his clothing, you will get the PKs and sweets. So when in Turbo, one day I had a dream that I was walking along a path and I was passing a bushy place. But in this bushy place, I saw Nick was standing there and he was holding cigar. But when he spotted me, he quickly hid that cigar. And that was the end of my dream. I shared this dream with him. But he replied nothing. That was not the end. After a day, I had the same dream the second time. I was passing along a road and there was a forest. And I saw Nick standing and he was holding a cigar. But this time, this cigar was with smoke. So I shared this dream the second time with him. And he said, those dreams of yours. And he just kept me quiet. So I remember I had to travel from Turbo to Eldoret Madanrili Hospital. Remember I traveled alone to go and give birth. But when I was there, my youngest sister Brenda, I remember she traveled from Nairobi to come and help me out. Lynette, my second born sister, is the one who sent her fare to come and help me out. So I remember I reported on a Monday with diarrhea and vomiting. But on Friday is the day that I was able to give birth 1:45 a.m. And I remember the journey back to Tarbo. My mother is the one who catered for that expense. Because still at that time, as much as Nick was working in Gobi, there were just problems. Shorts of money. And you just don't understand what is happening. So we came back. And one day I traveled home to Bungoma to see my mother. And when I came back, I never informed Nick. I just wanted to go to the house direct so that in the evening when he comes back, he finds a surprise. So when I traveled back, I reached at my door, but it was locked. And I didn't have the key. So I had to report to where he works. And when I reported to where he works, it surprised him. So instead of him giving me the key to go home and he continue working, he just complicated himself. I was just not understanding why. But he made sure he was the one who went first in the house alone. And then he came back and released me to go into the house. So, nilikanyagia, but I said there is something going on. So one day, after giving birth, because even when I gave birth, the people who helped me out, there were the neighbors. Because they helped me out. Lynette, my second born sister, is the one who told me to find someone who will help me even at least for a month, so that when I heal, I can be able to do ABC on my own. But this first month, someone to help me with the house costs and everything. So I didn't find anyone but my neighbors, Mama Mark, and there was a maid of Mama Nadia who helped me out. Because in the end, that money I split between them, the money that Lynette sent. So after they had finished their month of helping me out, so I used to wake up myself and do the ABC. So Nick will always wake up mostly around 6 and go to work. But this habit of staying longer in the toilet had never disappeared. So he always woke up, did his own things, and went to work. He never used to take breakfast. Sometimes he will come back, or sometimes it's just until evening. He will take breakfast at work. So one day he woke up as usual and went to the toilet. As usual, he took his longer time there as usual. So I decided just to wake up and do the washing. So I started doing the washing, he's not coming back. I started doing the washing, he's not coming back. So after some minutes, he appeared. and we met face to face. The stench that was coming from him, it is not the normal cigar. His eyes were red. I have never had the smell of bang. So I'm not familiar, and I've never known the smell of bang, but it is the word that came from my mouth. I asked him, "You smoke bang?" He was surprised. He didn't know what to do. He tried to apologize, but that day was my worst day. Because I remember during college I had an ex-boyfriend, Samora. He was a Munyore. But in the end, after hearing that the Nyores smoke bang, just it made my spirit low. It made me lose hope, because I never wanted to fall into someone who smokes bang. But here I am, already in the trap. So sikuamini. After he read it from my face that I was totally disappointed, like my spirit had just gone down to zero. So he promised that he will quit. And he went to work. So he knew that I was disappointed. So he tried to boost my spirit, but ilikuwa imetoka tu hivyo. Like all the hope was lost. Just with that revelation, with those findings, with that confirmation. So despite that behavior never changed. And more so, sometimes I used to clean the house and get those misokotos of bang hidden in the pillows. Sometimes he had forgotten in his clothes. Sometimes I will get nylon papers with some oil. Sometimes I will get that rough part of the matchbox and some matchbox sticks in his pocket. So now I was counting: he drinks, he smokes bang, he eats mirror. So life continued. So even though he was employed as a pump attendant at Kobil station, still you will hear that ameenda short of money, no salary. So it wasn't an easy life. And at that time, I couldn't look for some other work to do until it reached a point in the end. It was completely no more. Like that job had come to an end. And there we were in Turbo. We have to live, we have to survive. So I remember I shared it with my sisters. And at this point, Nick's parents had just like kept off, because many times they wished that we stayed at home, their original home in Kakamega, Duka Moja area, Buchira, that we don't stay in town. But I had opposed this thing. So they kept off, they kept silent, although they knew that Nick jobs was no more. So when I talked to my sisters, they merged and send me some money so that we can start a business, at least to support us and meet our needs. So I and Nick decided to start a donut business. So Nick prepares the dough, I heat them in oil, we pack, and then I was the one supplying. The business grew. It grew very well. I remember we had a neighbor, a teacher. Each day she was taking 30 packets to her school canteen. And then we had NYS Turbo. We had a person there who operated a shop. Same, he was taking 30 packets a day. And still I had to supply at the shop in Turbo. So we continued with this business. And we were able to employ workforce, so that I was just left with supplying and mostly doing the house chores. But sometimes Nick used to help. He will cook, he will sometimes even wash the utensils, help in fetching water. So it reached a point where some more started, because Nick's father considers himself a rich man. And he was saying that donut business is not worthy. So one day he called Nick and told him that he had gotten him another job at Magongo Depot in Mombasa. And he was to go there and do that work. So I tried to talk to Nick and asked him, don't go for this job. Let us continue with this donut business. Because we had reached a point that in a day we will buy the stock and still have 1,000 shillings as savings. We used even to sell the jerry cans of water. So I agreed with Nick that we are not going anywhere. We are continuing with the donut business. So his parents never abandoned him. Nick was the firstborn in their family. They kept on calling him, telling him why. They never gave him peace. Even the dad used his friends to talk to Nick. But Nick became rigid and said he was not going anywhere. He's continuing with the donut business. Because I asked him, you are going for this work. It is only 6 months. What if the contract is not renewed? What will happen? It's better we continue with this business. We are sure of it. So we slept. The following morning we had just woken up and Nick received a phone call. It was early in the morning. And after receiving this phone call, He told me that it was his own mother, and he was instructing Nick to go and pick her at Turbo stage. So I wondered. The time that we had been down, nobody bothered. But this time that Nick has refused the job offer, they are able to travel just for this job offer. So the mother came in, but we never agreed with her. Still Nick kept saying that he wasn't going. So Nick's mother then went back. But he went back when we had told him we are not going. But after she had left our house in Turbo, what happened shocked me. From nowhere, I became the enemy of Nick. Everything that we had planned, it became bitter to him. In fact, he was saying that namkosanisha na familia yake. And I remember I had told him, if you're going for that job, go alone, but I am not going. I will stay here in Turbo and continue with this business. So that afternoon, I remember we were making the donuts, but the argument continued, and it heated badly until Nick, the table that he was using, he overturned the table like he was throwing the dough and the donuts, the balls that he had made, in anger, because I'm not agreeing with him that we should go to Magongo for that new job. And that wasn't enough. He now took our firstborn daughter Lindsay and said that if I'm not going with him, I won't be able to stay alone with his kid. He is taking the kid to her own mother in Kakamega, then he goes for that job. So I just looked and I saw him take the baby and the suitcase, and he went out of the gate. So I remained alone. But this never bothered me much, because in my heart I knew that he won't succeed. So he went, I never bothered to follow him. I just sat. So after some time, I saw him come with the suitcase and the baby back, Lindsay. He entered the house and put her there and said that he is going home, Kakamega. So he went. I don't know what happened, but I think he was supposed to travel the same day, and his dad had booked a ticket for him, but he arrived late and the bus had gone. So this again made him to have a heated argument with his own father. And this time his father told him that if you don't want that job, then never bother me again. like you're not my child. And there he had no money to book an extra ticket to help him go for that job. And I think that time Nick decided to contact my sister Lynette, because I know it was Lynette who gave him that cash that helped him be able to travel to Mombasa. I think he went after that bus. I don't remember well, but I know that Lynette was the one who supported him finally. So I remained in Tarbo. Continuing with that business with the boys that I had. They had just finished Form 4 and they were the children of my neighbor. So the first day we just did everything well, okay. But the second day, I had left my daughter sleeping and I had gone to supply. But when I came back, I found again the worst. I just don't know what happened from nowhere. Those boys started hitting back at me. They started to from nowhere saying that I'm not doing well, I'm mistreating them. And imagine, we have just operated for 1 day and they did what they were doing, that I should increase their pay, I should make them do, yani, have the best out of it. So I was just wondering, where has this come from? And the more shock that I got, this same evening, these same boys, in their house, they started the donut business. So I was there left alone. I can't continue with the donut business. So in that state that I was, Nick had reached Mombasa. And there in Mombasa again, he reached out to my sister Regina to talk to me. So I talked to my sister Regina, we talked much, and I even explained her everything that had happened. So she talked to me and said, just go. Just go to Mombasa. With everything that has happened, it won't be good for you just alone. You won't manage. Just go. So when I decided to finally go to Mombasa, Nick's dad sent his own brother with their pickup from Kakamega to Tarbo. Everything that we had, we packed to their home in Kakamega. And before we shifted to Mombasa, Nick's dad had started establishing a home for Nick. They call it a Simba, building it for him. Because he was saying that Nick has married. When I finally visit their home, will I be sleeping in the kitchen? And as he knows Nick, he won't do that. So he himself started those foundation, kumjengea. But with the Luya tradition, that when the roofing is being made, they were telling me that I am supposed to go to our home and bring, I don't know, chicken or a cock, so that I come with it be slaughtered people eat. But when I asked my mom about that, my mother refused and said that one no. So when the roofing was being made, I remember that day I went with Nick, and when we went with Nick to their home, they slaughtered chicken. We ate, and that kofia thing, we had to hold it together and give those workers. That is what happened. But the issue of I bringing chicken from our home, my mother said no. So that happened that way. So the things that came from Tarbo were to be stored in that house. So that in Mombasa, it's like we were going again to start new. So I eventually traveled to Mombasa. So on reaching Mombasa, I was still bored with everything. So I am there, but again, the arguments are still there. Nick speaking the negative. So I just kept quiet. I never talked much. So while in Mombasa again, Nick met a friend, Jimmy. He was a colleague at Yakomat. So mostly during the weekends, Jimmy will come visit Nick. But I saw mostly they were coming and eating miraa. So I was against this behavior because I had gotten tired of it. So Nick now became rude, and I remember one day he told me, even if you want, tell your parents that I smoke bang and do what you have to do. And I remember I mentioned this to his parents. So one day he came with Jimmy inside the house. They were eating the miraa. And I was completely bored. Even I just never wanted to sit with them in the sitting room and look at them. And the worst thing that he was doing after eating those miraa, the dirt that they make, he had left that I take them and throw them away. And I told him I will never do that. I told him I will never do that. So he later threw that dirt. So my spirit was low kabisa. It's like I had buried myself in misery. The hope was gone, the hope was lost. I was just living and wondering, what should I do now? Should I walk away and go? Should I move on? Because here it's like there is no hope. And I even remember there's a time I was just angry, and when I'm angry with my stammering condition, I normally don't talk. So I decided to express myself and write on paper, and I gave him. But it never worked. Alinikashifu with what I did. So he came, he managed to buy seats for the house, tables for the house, television, mattress. So we started afresh because he was being paid a salary of 30,000. But I was never at peace and rest. I never had that joy. The joy had gone. I was just there living like if I'm dead. Just wandering and wandering, wandering and wandering. So another day, he came home, and this evening, so logging into Facebook, I read Nick had posted that he is at the beach and he is looking for a sugar mommy. Wow, this thing shocked me because I was again asking myself, is this the character of a married man? Remember, he has the contacts of my sisters. Now, if they read something like this, even his own brothers, and they know that he is someone that he is not single, he has a wife, he has a child. So again, I kept quiet. But inside of me, I was boiling with anger and regret. So another day, he came from work in the evening. I was in the house, and he came inside the house, and he again he left. So we never used to talk much. There was little peace. And I remember this time even his own brother, younger brother Timothy, had visited us. So he was around. So when he left, I went through, it was almost dark. So I went through the back door, which also acted like a gate. Because the house, most of the houses in Mombasa, you find one large house, but in it there are small houses for rent. So when you look from outside, you may think it is just one large house for belonging to one person, but when you enter, it is divided. So I had gone through the back door to pour water, but at the corner I saw Nick with another woman. It shocked him. It took him by surprise. So I just came back into the house, and later he followed me, trying to apologize, but I never took that apology because it was now too much for me. It was too much for me. I never wanted to give him an ear. And when he saw that I am not humbling down, giving him an ear, because now it became also the time when I asked him about the post that he wrote on Facebook about I am on the beach and I want a sugar mommy. So I never calmed down, and I told him, mali imefika. So in this argument, Nick ended up beating me. He slapped me first, and then some blows followed. So I told him, umenipiga, this is just the end. I am leaving and I am leaving. You'll never see me. So when he heard this, it became a bad argument that his own brother had to intervene. But when he intervened, he had to involve Nick's parents. So he is involving Nick's parents. They are trying to calm me down that they will solve, but I refused. And I myself now called my sisters and informed them. And now they said that if he has beaten you, even that, just don't stay. Because today he has beaten you, he will apologize. But next time, he will come and do it again. So in the morning, he thought that I will wake up when I have changed my mind. But still, I told him I am leaving. So he tried to call my sister Regina again. And he was talking to Regina. So they never agreed with Regina. And he told Regina rudely and arrogantly that if she has decided to go, let him come back to you. And if she has no fare, tell me so that I can give you. So I was sent fare. And before I left, he took my clothes and messed up everything. I had packed them. He messed up everything. He threw them everywhere. And another thing again, he tried to use Lindsay, our firstborn kid. He took her away so that if I'm leaving, I may go without Lindsay, or through Lindsay, I will not go.